Get rid of your credit card debt, get a lower monthly payment, and skip your next 2 house payments at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to save thousands with SaveWithConrad.com. Find out how much money you can save right now at SaveWithConrad.com.
Words are about to be spoken here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, presented to you by the Ad-Free Shows and Podcast Heat Networks. I'm John Alba. That is the broken one, woken one, spoken one himself, Mr. Matt Hardy. How are we, my brother? Coming to us from Cincinnati tonight?
Yeah, I'm in Cincinnati. It is 11:30 p.m. You know, we've had a couple weeks here going late, but, you know, we are here to give this podcast, The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, to all of our loyal listeners each and every week. And it doesn't make a difference if I'm doing it at midnight, if I'm doing it at 3 a.m., doing it at 6 a.m., it is going to get done. And you are in that same boat, John, and I appreciate it.
I'm thrilled. Hey, 11:30, this is prime time John Alba hours. I'm good.
You're right, yeah.
I'm good. The 24/7, the thunder will roll as far as I see it. But last week, admittedly, I listened back to our episode last week. I think we hit the record button at like 1 a.m. So it was a late night, and I think it was a little reflective in our somber tone, but also due to the subject of what we were talking about last week. Yes. But we did get some good feedback from that episode. I think a lot of people found that to be a very interesting topic, the SmackDown after 9/11. What did you think after taking it back, listening to it, and reflecting on that?
I did. A lot of really interesting feedback, and it's so weird because it's a topic that I would imagine some of our listeners, younger listeners, they weren't even around to witness it. You know, so it wasn't as big of a deal. It wasn't as impactful. It wasn't as jarring as it would be to us and people that were there that lived through it. And like everybody remembers where they were when 9/11 went down. You know, and I'm pretty intrigued because it's like a moment that is like etched in time that people will always remember where they were when they heard about it. And it's always interesting to me when you hear people state where they were specifically.
Absolutely. Go back into the archives and check out that episode if you haven't already. And I'm telling you, man, next time you're in New York, I know you're going to be in New York for an extended period of time coming up. I'm not sure if we're ready to announce that yet, but I know you're going to be soon. And when you do, I definitely recommend you go check out the 9/11 memorial, and anyone over there. It's a tough thing, but it's really beautiful and well done for sure. But we are adding some levity to this podcast. We've had a couple tough weeks of topics, so I think it's time to talk about some fun stuff on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, my friend. And that is why we are doing an Ask Matt, where the Extreme Life faithful get to ask you questions. But before I can get into any of those, is there anything that's on the wrestling radar this week that you want to talk about? We are officially in the Endeavor era of WWE. Vince McMahon no longer the principal owner of WWE. It's great. It feels like hell has really frozen over, hasn't it?
Dude, VKM, Vince McMahon had a hell of a run. You can't deny that. And it's so appropriate knowing and working as closely as I did with Vince in the past over so many years. You know, first run, roughly 14 years, 3 years after that. I've done about 17 years at WWE. The fact that he ended up selling the company and leaving on top where no one will ever get the opportunity to make World Wrestling Federation, as far as an individual sole owner, better than him was just apropos for him. I mean, it really is very, very, very fitting. So, you know, he sells it on. The Endeavor thing is official. The merger has gone through. It's going to be so interesting. And I'm so curious of how it's going to work in conjunction, working hand in hand with the UFC and what they're going to do and what the changes are going to be that come to the forefront. It's going to be a really, really interesting time in WWE.
There was a really interesting comment, too, made by one of the Endeavor executives where he said, in an ideal world, WWE fans become UFC fans and UFC fans become WWE fans. And there's been a lot of chatter about that and whether that's feasible or not. And Dana White himself kind of shut it down and said he didn't really feel there was a lot of crossover between those two audiences. What's your perception on that? Do you see there being crossover opportunities from a fan base standpoint, or will they kind of live a little separately?
It's interesting because I actually saw that clip on social media that Dana White commented on that. I don't think you're going to have a lot of UFC, mixed martial arts, shoot fighting fans really just jump over to wrestling because it's also owned by the same company that owns UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people that enjoy the pageantry and the fantastical world of pro wrestling are necessarily going to jump to UFC. Although I do think they're both such unique, extreme sports and entertainment. I think there will be some great promotion you can do with them both together. I don't know if they're fans. I don't know if fans of specifically pro wrestling or fans specifically of mixed martial arts are going to like cross over and like love the other brand just because now they're under the same roof.
Yeah, I think you see more crossover where WWE fans will watch UFC, but I think there's less crossover of UFC fans watching pro wrestling, if that makes sense.
Agree. I do agree.
And the irony being is UFC specifically, more so than any other MMA organization, really has borrowed so much from the theatrical elements of pro wrestling, where who become the most successful fighters? The fighters that can talk the talk, right? They're cutting promos out there, and they have the larger than life gimmicks and characters. So
they get a persona and run with it. And there's guys that are specifically kind of playing a role where they seem like the bad guy. They say things that people do not like. You also have, people entering to the octagon with music and whatnot. I mean, there's a lot of similarities in it.
What's your read on the stuff going on in AEW right now? We got Grand Slam coming up. Anything you want to throw out there?
It's going to be very, very interesting. If you're watching the podcast on Friday, tonight I'm going to be on Rampage on an 8-man tag. And I might actually show up and do my first collision on Saturday. We'll see. I don't know when this will be announced. It might be announced tonight. It may have already been announced. I don't know. But I think I am going to end up showing up at a collision. It's a new era for AEW. And I think it's a good era where we're not really going to be necessarily having these split rosters and split shows, but I think they're going to kind of work more in unity. There's going to be a unison between these two shows, and people are going to like tell stories between them. And I think that's a good thing to keep all options open. So I'm excited about this new era. Morale is really, really high. Everybody's happy. It's a great team effort. Everybody's working together. There's no one there that is unhappy. So it's a good time to be a part of AEW, and I'm very excited for what the future holds. Grand Slam coming up. It's going to be really interesting to see how that does when it's all said and done. It's a huge arena. The first time we did it, we obviously sold it out at Arthur Ashe. And the ticket sales have been a little bit slower, but like there's just so much wrestling now. It's hard to go back to these venues over and over and over again and continue to sell them out or sell the same amount of tickets. But AEW is still doing very, very well. I know some people, especially diehard people, sometimes talk about the ticket sales or whatever, but I think this is going to be an issue that AEW is going to eventually be able to deal with. I think we're going to get some good stories going. I think people are going to catch on and like what we're doing, and we're going to continue to keep our chins up and moving forward.
I want to follow up there real quick on Grand Slam. Eddie Kingston, an opportunity for him to win the Ring of Honor World Championship in New York, where you and I have talked about Eddie before in the past. He's really one of those individuals that fans just gravitate to based on his natural charisma and persona. How meaningful do you think having a match like that is for him in that particular setting, and what that could do for him?
I mean, it's huge for Eddie Kingston. It's truly, in his backyard. And he very much reminds me of a Mick Foley type persona. He has this guy that doesn't have the typical look of a pro wrestler and doesn't act or perform like a typical pro wrestler. He's really rough around the edges, but there's just a charisma about him in his personality and the way he presents himself that just draws people to him. And Eddie Kingston is like one of the guys who defied the odds, much like Mick Foley defied the odds. And I think you've got a lot of goals Eddie Kingston wants to achieve that you're going to see him achieve in the future.
Rumor has it, I don't even know if this is public knowledge, but rumor has it, Eddie Kingston's a bit of a Hardy mark.
Yeah, he's cool. There was a point where he put in an application to join the Hardy Party. So, we'd love to have him.
Okay.
Even though I don't even know what the future of the Hardy Party equates to right now, as far as everyone being together. I know we're at a point where Mark Quinn is getting very healthy. So I hope sooner than later, we have Private Party back together. Ethan Page, I really don't know what we're doing, but if he wants to be free from me having his contract, I would gladly tear up his contract and let him go. What's that old expression? If you love something, you have to let it go. And I do. I've got lots of love for Ethan Page right now.
So Ethan Page is redeemed?
He has redeemed, yes. And Miro didn't even have to do it. The Redeemer
didn't even have to do it.
He redeemed himself with me. And Jeff and I, our focus is winning the AEW World Tag Team titles, and that's the main thing we really will focus on going forward.
All right, Matt Hardy, we got tons of questions to get to. Let's not waste any more time. Please, without further ado, hit us with that Matt Fact.
Matt Fact, Matt occasionally enjoys artichokes.
Occasionally. So it's a sometimes food?
It's a sometimes food for sure.
Okay.
Now, in my travels, I've learned to document my Matt Facts, as they're happening in real time, real life. And last weekend, I made an appearance at the Mall of America for First Wrestling.
Oh, yes. That was a great experience, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Just, it was cool to be there. We signed autographs, had a great turnout. I signed for 3.5 hours. I had a 3-hour time slot, so it was great. It was a great turnout. Thank you to everyone who came out and visited me and hung out with me in Minneapolis at the Mall of America. I greatly appreciate it. A great turnout, right? So when I was flying there that day, they told me that everybody in First had already ordered their meal. They said, sorry, the only thing we have left is this salad. It's like a vegan option or whatever. So, okay, that's fine, whatever. I'm actually trying to eat healthier anyway. But there were tons of artichokes on it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll dig artichokes. And I was just dipping them in sauce. Oh, these things are really good. I know they'll be every so often I'll be at a restaurant, or a facility that has artichokes, serves artichoke. And there'll be times where I'm like, oh, yeah, I'd have some artichoke. It's really tasty. It's really good. And it's really healthy, too. It's a very healthy option for you. It's, it's up there in the running. It's a few slots down from green beans, but I do enjoy the artichokes, along with heart of palm.
Are we talking cold artichokes or like warm artichokes?
I can do either or.
Okay. Gotcha.
Are you an artichoke fan or not?
I don't know about cold artichokes. I don't think I have had enough cold artichokes in my life to really have much of an opinion on them. Like a spinach and artichoke dip is like top tier stuff. There's a pizza place near Chelsea Market in New York City that I used to work by called Artichoke Pizza. And they're known for having these gigantic slices of pizza that are like these specialty slices, one of which is a spinach and artichoke pizza. And it's just one of those things you kind of have to try once in your life. It is to die for. So good. So I can get down with a little spin art.
I love a good spinach artichoke dip. That's great.
Hell yeah, absolutely. We put out a request for questions, and my friends did not come up short for us, Matt Hardy. The Extreme
They come through here, the Extreme Life. John,
always do. They did not let us down, and I think we should keep the food vibe going with one of our super fans. Brad Wise says, here in Wisconsin, a typical midnight snack is a few handfuls of shredded cheese, any flavor. What is your preferred midnight snack?
Oh my God, what a great question, Brad. If I try not to eat midnight snacks, but if I do, this is my favorite. This is what I would go to. So we have this real badass Mexican restaurant not far from us. It's about 12 minutes from the house. Really good Mexican food. And all my kids love the tacos there, except Woofy. Woofy would rather have a Taco Bell taco than a legitimate, authentic taco from the Mexican restaurant. But if we get beef tacos, and usually I'll get like 8 or whatever, and the kids will eat whatever, we'll get some chicken, some beef, whatever. What I love as a midnight snack is to take a taco and break it open and take the beef, mix it up a little bit, and put a little more sprinkled cheese on it, a little more that I have just from the fridge. And then I'll warm it up, and then I'll put a little bit of secret sauce from like that would go on a burger or whatever on the top of it, and eat a little small portion before bed, just enough to like settle my stomach and make me feel okay, enough to just feel like I have been that I am no longer insatiable. I have satiation.
I gotta break some news to you here, pal. You like the secret sauce? You know what's in secret sauce?
I know it's unhealthy. I do know that.
No, I'm not talking about the health standard. Bro, I don't give a shit about that stuff. I'm saying ingredient wise, in a secret sauce, one of the prominent ingredients is yellow mustard.
In the regular like burger secret sauce?
I make the secret sauce all the time when I'm out there cooking. And I've learned from the experts. And secret sauce, I know you're talking about like the Big Mac sauce, like that kind of thing that goes, it doesn't have the relish like Big Mac does, but I know exactly the Chick-fil-A sauce kind of thing. That's the vibe, right?
Yeah.
It's ketchup, Worcestershire, mayo, and mustard.
All right, that shit works for me, man. It's a transformer. You know what I mean? It transforms into something better.
It elevates. It elevates big time. Sometimes I throw a little extra something in it. But okay, so maybe Matt doesn't strongly dislike mustard quite as much as he believes he does.
Yeah, it's kind of all the work, but it's a fun thing to say. Like I am fine with mustard, and if I haven't said this before, I'll say it again. I am okay with mustard, but like just a burger, like if I would have a burger, or if I would have a piece of beef, like just putting plain regular mustard on, it doesn't enhance the taste or the flavor.
Right,
it takes away from it.
Sure.
So there's some stuff I'll put on, like obviously when I'm saying I'll put this burger secret sauce on the beef, the taco beef, and have a little melty cheese on top, that enhances the taste greatly, and it makes it's like you're eating a dessert, even though there's a lot of protein in it. You know what I mean? So as far as mustard goes, I mean, there'd be times if I was starving and someone brought me a burger that only had mustard on, I'd eat the shit out of it. If that was all I had to eat. But what I'm saying, if I have a choice, it doesn't enhance my experience.
I feel that. My guilty midnight snack right now. This is so bad. Those cheese sticks, like the mozzarella cheese sticks and whatnot that you can get at the grocery store and all that stuff. I'll put a little like Nashville hot sauce on that and just eat that. And it's like so good, but it's definitely not good for you.
Right.
But I feel that. All right, let's keep moving here. John Hammer, I believe, asking his first question. Well, he spells his name Jon, so he's good in my book.
All right, Jon.
Wrestlers often look to change up their look to avoid going stale. Has Matt ever considered cutting the hair? There are photos of teenage Matt with short hair, and it looked great. Showcase the physique. No disrespect, but a fresh paint of coat may add more longevity. What do you think about that?
I have thought about it, and there has been times where I've cut my hair where it been very short. You could see, like when I first did Big Money Matt, my hair was like pretty outrageously short, where it was like down at the very bottom of like my headline and like where my neckline was. As far as like shaving it off and doing the flat top, I'm going to be honest. I'll be 49 here in just a few days, and my hairline isn't as strong or powerful as it is. I don't really think that flat top would necessarily be good for me. I think there would be some flaws. There would be some holes in it. If I was going to go all the way and cut my hair, I would shave my head probably, which my wife would probably.
Huh. Interesting.
But my wife specifically wants me to keep long hair. She thinks long hair looks the best on me.
Well, yeah, it's like gothic too. So she's into that.
She likes to make fools of me, when she sees the old stuff of me with the high and tight. I used to get that because I was a big rap fan. Like I first got that haircut. I had like regular like little boy hair, right? Like I would have it and I like combed it in the middle. It was just short little boy hair. And then I saw Terminator X. I was like, oh my God, they called it the high and tight. And that's what I called mine too. Even though my hair wasn't necessarily designed the same, I would rock a high and tight, man. And that was high voltage's gimmick in the beginning.
I had a bowl cut for a period of time as a kid. It was the early 90s were a wild period.
You had a bowl cut? Was someone trying to make fools of you, John?
Oh, dude, and it was like straight out of the we put a bowl on your head, and that's what it looked like. That's really what it looked like.
The bowl cut is such a funny term.
Oh,
I love that, man.
Well,
there's a Jerky Boys. There's a Jerky Boys bit where that's where I get that line from. So there was a period in time. Sorry to go on a tangent. I'm gonna let you get right back to it. But like
we're having fun here.
Myself, Rey Mysterio, Jack Swagger, and R-Truth. We rode together, right? So there was a period where we listened to the Jerky Boys nonstop, and we had these things memorized. We would say the bits over and over again. And I remember someone said, "Oh my God," he said, "My mother, she put a bowl in my head and she gave me a bowl cut and made fools of me." You know, that is, if I hear bowl cut, I hear made fools of me. Made fools of me. That's all. That will always be associated in my mind whenever I hear bowl cut. Made fools of me, and it comes from the Jerky Boys.
Let's get a good one from Nate here. I know you're gonna love answering this question. It says, "Hello from San Antonio, Matt and John. How did you feel?" This is certainly not a question to me. This is a question to you. "How did you feel when you first found out you were going to be a girl dad? And what's the best advice you can provide to a fellow girl dad? My girl will be 3 months, and being her dad is such an accomplishment in my life. And P.S. I hope you guys can come and do a live show at some point here in San Antonio. I would love to go down to San Antonio and do a live show. But let's hear your girl dad advice there. And what were your thoughts on becoming one?"
I was super hyped to become a girl dad, because like I wanted 2 boys, and then I thought there was no way Barty, who was our 3rd boy, there was no way he couldn't not be a girl, but it was another boy again, and I was legitimately shocked whenever we did that reveal. Ultimately, finally, the 4th baby, we made it work, and we had a girl, and I was super excited because, like, I feel like in life I want to experience everything, and to me, it was important not only to be a boy dad, and I'll be honest, this is me being biased because of myself and Jeff, because I had a brother, and it was the 2 of us, so I wanted at least 2 boys, and then like if I'd had a girl, I'd been good with that. So even being a girl dad, I feel like it's different because you feel like this is someone that has to be more protected. You have to care for her more. Like being a boy growing up, I know it's very different than being a little girl. Like little boys are crazy. They fight. They're a lot tough. And girls are just a little physically more soft, if that makes sense. And you just want to protect them more. And it's just like, when I see her and I think about like, this is a little girl that I'm raising into being a woman. And as her father, it is my job to be her protector, and also her brother's jobs to be her protector. So that was the thing that I was the most excited about, just to experience how it would feel different. And it does feel different. I feel like she smells different than the boys do, as weird as that is. And I'll be honest, after changing diapers for 3 boys, whenever I would take down her diaper and there's like a different mechanism down there's like, whoa, okay, that's right. This is a girl, you know? So that took a second to get used to, but then like you love it. And she really is, she's so different from the boys. She like, it's so sweet. And she's almost smart too. Like she's very, very in the know of like what she is. She's cute and she knows it, and she knows how to do what she needs to do to wrap you around to wrap you around her little finger, and she's doing it already at age 2. So she's going to be hard to handle when she gets older.
Yeah, she's running that house. There's no questions asked about that. Whenever I'm on the phone with Matt, guys, like legitimately, whenever I'm on the phone with him and he's home, I always hear, "Evie, don't run out there, Evie." Don't.
Oh yeah.
It is always Evie in that case. I heard the boys were ribbing each other a little bit this week.
Oh yeah, I mean they do nonstop. It's always something with them. But Evie more than anything else. So we obviously live out in the country, Hardy Compound. It's a character in the Broken Universe, but we live out in a very rural area, right? Mm-hmm. So we have 3 doors that go out now. A couple of them we've locked away, so we couldn't. We did have 5 exits on the first floor. Evie, being just turning 2 years old, even before she was 2 years old, none of the boys did this at all. So none of them would like go outside on their own. They were too afraid to. She will go outside and like walk out to like the mailbox or the mail house, or she'll try and get into the pool. She'll walk out to the building, the Dome of Delicious, and she would do like, she'd be quiet. And K-Fig like open the door quiet and close it quiet. We had to put like locks and chains on the top of all the doors in the house because that little girl kept sneaking out. And she would do it more. She'd do it more than anybody with Grandpa.
I love that.
Because he'd be doing stuff. He's always with the kids and he's always doing this and like playing with one or whatever. And then like when they weren't paying attention, she would like haul ass outside. Crazy. She's smart.
She's going to be a handful, no doubt about that.
I know that.
We got Quadriquez Isby. Simple question here, but it's a good one. I know you're gonna like it. The Hardy Boys versus the Usos, both in their prime. Who wins?
Hardy Boys and Usos, both in their prime, both at their peak. In a best of 7, the Hardy Boys win 4-3.
Okay.
What
How
up,
do you think
Usos?
the-
What
how
up,
do
Usos?
the Usos? How do the Usos? Because you've been in the ring with them. How do the Usos push you guys?
I mean, always when you have someone that is in their prime, it pushes you to work harder. And it's like I've seen both sides of that. You know, I've been in the ring with guys like Taker and seen Jeff in the ring with Taker. You know, when he was doing the ladder match, and you see Taker like really turns it up a gear because he wants to really. He's got a legacy that he wants to really. You know, he wants to submit. You know that he was great. He was in a ladder match, but it was good. It wasn't bad because it was a ladder match. It wasn't his cup of tea necessarily. So, it's cool. You know, I've done that where I've been in the ring with guys where I felt like I've been my prime, and you feel like they really kick it up a notch because they want to make sure to look like they belong in there with you. And that's probably what myself and Jeff, we do with a lot of the guys now that are in their prime. And when we worked with the Usos in WWE in 19, that's exactly the same thing. You know, we're like, okay, these guys are at the top of their game right now. We got to like bust our ass. We got to make sure we look like we can hang, and we belong in the same category as these guys right now.
Everyone likes to compare the Usos and the Young Bucks. Are they similar in the ring?
They're very different. I mean, I think the biggest similarity between those two teams are just that they both do super kicks, and they can do multiple super kicks. That is like one of their signature moves. I feel like the Usos are more of a WWE mindset. They are more in the mindset of telling a regular story that stays very violent, more based in reality, probably. And then I feel like the Young Bucks, they thought out of the box. But without them thinking out of the box, I don't know if you necessarily get AEW as it is now. You don't get all the events that happen. So they are in a much more entertainment phase, and they do a lot of character work. And I think one of the things the Young Bucks have embraced more than anything else, which makes them so good. You know, there was that deal where there was a thing going where Booker said they didn't shake his hand at a TV back in the day. So then they like made that their bit. So when people legitimately buy into them that like they have done something wrong or they have heat, whatever, they buy into the bit and they put it on TV. And that's kind of who they are. And that defines them. They roll with the punches more than anybody else. Where some guys would just like change it. No, we're going to be very serious. We're going to, stay locked in, tunnel vision on what our goal is. And we're going to do this match where it's very much based in reality. They don't necessarily. They roll with the punches, whatever the crowd is saying to them, or whatever the crowd believes, they become.
Great answer there. Love hearing that. We got Coach Rosie.
Coach Rosie.
Says, Matt,
our
was
boy.
there ever a scenario where you would have fought on the all-in card from London?
I would have absolutely not fought on the all-in card in London. I wouldn't have fought on the Double or Nothing card. I wouldn't have fought on a live Dynamite card. I wouldn't have fought on a live Collision card. I wouldn't have fought on a pre-recorded Rampage card. I wouldn't have fought on a house show card. Like fighting, I'm too old to be fighting. And I think anybody that is involved in professional wrestling shouldn't be fighting. Like fighting doesn't solve anything. If you have some sort of problem with someone, it's something you come back and you hash out, but fighting is the last resort. The only reason you should ever fight is if you're defending yourself, period.
I think he more meant that would you have had a match on that, but I do see there could be some duality in that question, perhaps. Was there at any point a plan for you to have a match on the all-in card?
There was a proposed match about us blowing off our 6-man tag with myself and Jeff and Big Show, taking on Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh. And that didn't obviously happen. And probably more than likely the reason that did not happen is because Jeff had issues getting a visa and going over there just because of some of those legal troubles that he'd had most recently.
Understandable, but that doesn't mean there won't be future opportunities for you guys to have big time matches on big time cards. I think that's all very much possible. I mean, Matt, the reality is, these big time shows aren't going to be stopping anytime soon for AEW. Right? We just heard Wrestle Dream is happening in Seattle. got Hangman Page versus Swerve for that show, which I am absolutely amped for. And truthfully, if I'm in the mood, I might even decide to grab some last-second tickets with our friends over at Game Time, because buying tickets to your favorite event should never be stressful. And I know with Game Time, I can wait till the very last second to pick up the best seats out there at prices that fit me. How serious am I about this, Matt Hardy? Let me tell you what happened this past weekend for me. I was supposed to see Bruce Springsteen. You ever see him before? I've never seen him before. It was supposed to happen. and unfortunately, Bruce canceled the rest of his dates through October. So that left my Saturday totally free. You know what I did? I downloaded the Game Time app. I redeemed the promo code Hardy, and I got tickets to Yankees Old Timers Day to see the 1998 Yankees, the team that made me become a sportscaster, reunited for, and this is a shoot,
for how much?
$1.50 to
Hold
go
up.
to this game.
Hold up. You're telling me you got these tickets for 6 quarters?
I got this ticket for 6 quarters, 15 dimes, if you will.
30 nickels?
30 nickels.
Unbelievable. I'm blown away. Game Time comes through. It's the best call. Game Time is the best. If you want to get tickets, Game Time is the way to go.
Dude, legitimately $1.50 for a Yankee Stadium seat, and a good seat at that too. A miserable game, but that's not Game Time's fault. They don't guarantee that. But thankfully, with the Game Time guarantee, you know that you are going to be in a good place, because the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Dude, you've got some Game Time credit to use. I know you've been holding on to it. What do you think maybe you could treat Mama to as the holidays start to roll around?
There's a couple concerts, that she might like to go to. There's 2 concerts we're going to where we have invites, where we're getting hooked up coming up here.
Oh, really?
Very short. Yeah. One of them is someone who had her on her podcast, Jelly Roll and Bunny. We're going to that. And like my brother's wife, Beth, she's a huge fan of both of these individuals. So we're actually going up there doing a little VIP thing. This is like the first weekend of October, if I'm not mistaken. So we got a couple things, but I think that would be fun. I also think it would be ironic and fun if down in Carolina, if I could take her to a New York Giants game. Hopefully they would. And I've kind of been thinking about that. I think that would shock her, especially if I surprised her.
That would be the perfect way to use Game Time. We can do it, and so can you. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Hardy for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Hardy for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.
Let's keep going here, Matt Hardy.
I'm not going to lie. That was a nice ad for ad-free shows.
Oh, of course it was, man.
A nice ad.
Lots of good content going on over on AFS right now. I'm particularly enjoying all the different mailbag series they've got going on there. Adfreeshows.com. Make sure you check it out. We got George the Third Hardy.
Oh, there we go. What's up, George?
What match made you the most excited for whom you were facing? That's an interesting question.
It is. There's a couple I would say. I was super excited, even though we were friends at this point, to be wrestling Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania 19. Just because the stuff Rey Mysterio and Psychosis did at ECW when they first got their opportunity to run there, that was hugely influential to myself and Jeff. Like, we copied their spots, we did their stuff, and Psychosis and Jushin Liger are and Muda, those are the main things behind the whole Willow identity. But Psychosis was a big deal for Jeff, especially in that day and age. So he was one of the guys. I remember I had like 5 guys I would love to wrestle. I'd be my dream to wrestle them, and Rey Mysterio was on the list. So I was really excited to work with Rey, even though we worked together so much, but doing it at WrestleMania. And I also remember it was a last-second thing because they wanted to get heat on the 2-man power trip. When we walked in the TV and we found out we were wrestling Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H in the main event, along with Stephanie McMahon, Helmsley, Team Extreme, I was very excited for that match because that showed that they really saw our popularity as real, and we were the guys that could actually get these guys booed, get these guys heat. So that was a match I was really excited for as well.
You know, those hidden gem episodes of our podcast I always talk about, I think our 2-man power trip episode is one of those, and you can go back into the archives and listen to extremehardy.com if you haven't, because it's a time period in your career that I don't think a whole lot of people talk about and think about, but you definitely had some great insight on Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H. So go check that episode out. I want to stick with WWE here for a second. Austin Williams, and I genuinely don't know how much this guy's even on your radar or not, but he has thoughts on Grayson Waller. Have you seen some of the stuff that he's been doing in WWE?
Very little, but the stuff I've seen, like clips on social and stuff, I enjoy. I hear his name a lot. His name is in circulation a lot, so he's obviously doing something right. I've seen very little of him, but it seems like so far so good.
I think Grayson Waller has potential to be a big-time player for WWE. I didn't get it with him at first, and then I watched the NXT Eliminator match that they did last year, the Survivor Challenge. And I was like, it just, you know, sometimes when you watch some wrestlers, maybe at first you don't get it, and then it just clicks, and you're like, oh, that's what makes them special. I got it in that moment. And right now, I think he's crushing it. He and your boy, Adam Copeland, Edge, had a fantastic match on WWE TV. And now he's working with John Cena a little bit. I mean, he's got a big ceiling. I know there was someone in NXT, Tiffany Stratton, that really caught your attention this past week with that big swanton she did, huh?
Yeah, that, and when she does the jump up moonsault deal, like she's seems like a really special athlete. And the little bits and pieces, I've seen clips of her online. I've seen most of my stuff online. I record all of the wrestling programming, and more often than not, I end up having to delete it whenever I'm leaving or whatever, just because I don't have time to like watch these things. Because you're there when you call me at the house. I'm watching 4 Maniacs, 50% of the time. So, and when I'm at home, it's probably 75% of the time because Rebby does it all whenever I'm away, obviously. But I've seen a couple of things of hers on NXT, and she seems super impressive. She's got great ability, a great athlete, a good look, and I think she's going to end up doing well for herself, especially on the main roster when it comes her time to go.
I very much agree with that. I tweeted this out. I zeeted it out that if she doesn't become a star, someone screwed up. It's as simple as that.
Let's call it like it is too. NXT did a really good number Tuesday night. This is Wednesday night. We're doing it. Actually, it's Thursday morning right now. But like NXT did a really good number, and it was headlined by her and Becky. Was that like the selling point of the show? So congrats to those two.
As Becky Lynch called herself on Zeter, ratings Rebecca. So it's good stuff there from her. We got your girl Val. It says, which ruthless aggression era wrestler that you would have loved to have worked with that you didn't get a chance to? It can be anybody that was on Raw or SmackDown between 2004 and 2005.
I don't think there is any, in all honesty. I mean, is there anybody that you can think of that you could possibly name that I didn't wrestle? I think I wrestled everyone.
I would have loved to have seen a singles program, a mid-card singles program between you and Shelton Benjamin. I think that would have been real fun for you and real good. You know, we saw you guys work with him a little bit as when the Hardys reunited, but you didn't cross paths too much on a singles basis, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that would have been fun.
We had a whole program for the U.S. title. He's the guy that ultimately beat me for the
In
U.S. title.
2004?
No, it was later.
Yeah, it came later. I'm talking about this time. I'm talking about
in that era. Okay.
Yeah, in that
Yeah,
within the parameters.
I worked with him on live events
Mhm.
during that time. So
I'm talking about within her parameters of when she's
I see.
saying.
I see.
Yeah. Honestly, I know this sounds crazy too. I would have loved to have seen heel Matt Hardy with that era of Shawn Michaels. Could have been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been fun. Could have been a little different.
Yeah.
Maybe even a proper program with Kurt. Could have been fun as well.
Yeah.
Just doing some different stuff. Definitely a lot of opportunities there that there could have been matches on the table. Let's see. We've got one from Sean Berkey asks, who was your favorite singer or band when you were growing up? So we know that Pearl Jam became your jam later in life, but growing up, did you have any favorites?
When it's very funny because like the only music I was really exposed to growing up was my dad playing country music in his basement. He had like a little local band and they would play shows locally and whatnot. So country music was really the only thing I heard. The only radio exposure I got was listening to AM radio, like the news and stuff when I was young. So like music wasn't a big thing. The first time Jeff and I, once we got a little older and we started becoming, I was a teenager, Jeff was 10, whatever. I remember getting a boombox, that had a cassette player where you could record stuff off the radio. And we heard some of the poppy music at that time, like Belinda Carlisle. I can't even think of her name right now. Think we're alone now.
Mhm.
There doesn't seem to be anyone around. Ooh, heaven, do you know what that's worth? Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. Anyway, some of that poppy stuff. And nothing really stood out and grabbed me. The first thing that I really liked more than anything else was some Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
I was a fan of those guys. That was the first group that I thought I really got into, but then that led me down the rap rabbit hole, right? So then I was like, okay, well, what else is there? I was like, oh my God, here's Public Enemy and here's Ghetto Boys and here's NWA. Like, whoa, everything. I ended up listening to all types of rap, but out of all those, Public Enemy was my first favorite band. I really became a huge fan of.
Once upon a time, I used to be able to do the entire Fresh Prince theme song. I'm not talking like the 30-second Fresh Prince theme song. I'm talking like the full 3-minute version of it. That sits somewhere within the crevices of my brain. I don't know where, but maybe one day you and I will hit Nashville, do some karaoke, and we'll lay that thing down.
Belinda Carlisle, that's who it was.
Belinda Carlisle, yes. Let's see. We got Joshua Culver. Good question here. Does WWE own the intellectual property for the V1 hand signal? Could you do a run as V1 in AEW if you tweaked it a little to avoid those issues?
I do the V1 hand sign. They don't own that, obviously. They did copyright and trademark Matt Hardy version 1. So there was a point when I was doing kind of like the shifting in and out of characters a little bit, and I acknowledged myself and did it on TV just a tad. But did it on BTE a bit too as the first version. So if I was going to do a V1 centric character, we did do a couple Matt facts on there, which was a matter of fact, and they popped up on AEW programming. It would be the first version.
Oh, that was so great in the Stadium Stampede, which we did an episode on, by the way, featuring Chris Jericho. And that brings us to our question from Bill. It says, do you have any favorite moments with Chris Jericho?
Oh my gosh.
Can you give us a moment outside of the ring? Maybe a Chris Jericho story that people have never heard, if you have one off the top of your head, or a favorite thing about Chris?
I do have a story, and I was actually talking about it today. And like I remember Isaiah and DG, they were blown away by it. So there was this huge snowstorm in 2000. Do you remember this, John? I'm sure you were young.
In 2000, okay.
In 2000, it hit the East Coast. we were in Baltimore to do TV, right? So we got so snowed in, they shut the city down, and then they told us we're just going to wait until Thursday, I think it was, almost like the 9/11 deal. Said, just stay in town. We're going to do the show whenever the snow melts away. It was Tuesday. We got snowed in. We can't do anything. We'll just do it live Thursday, or either we did it Wednesday or pre-taped it or whatever. But like we had to stay in the town for a couple of days. And we were at a hotel. We were at the Microtel, of all places, at the Baltimore airport, right outside BWI. And myself, Jeff, Adam, Jay, Edge Christian, and Chris Jericho was there. And I remember we were stuck in this hotel. We had been able to get to this local convenience store and buy some white Zinfandel wine. We got a whole bunch of bottles, and we sat back and we had drank some wine, and we ended up jumping out of the second story into the snowbank. And it was so crazy because like we didn't know what was underneath there. There could have been like air conditioning units, whatever, but it was just like 5 guys stuck there who were snowed in, who didn't have shit to do. And then like we started getting a little wine buzz, and then everybody ended up jumping out the window. And like, I think we took our clothes off and jumped out in like our boxers. It was crazy, but that's a very funny story. And that was one of our first bonding experiences, because like when Chris first came in to WWE, because he was a WCW guy, there were Hunter and some of the other guys were a little hard on him to begin with. And like, no, we have to reteach you how to work, and you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. And like, we ended up bonding with him because like we were all around the same age. We kind of all had the same mindset as far as how we worked or how we kind of saw professional wrestling as far as going forward. And then we all really hit it off right from the jump. So there was the 5 of us in a hotel room in the Microtel, and we opened the window and jumped out the second story into the snow.
That's a great story. I love that. And no one got hurt?
No one got hurt.
There you go. How about that? I am trying to process that visual. That's
a wild
visual.
I'm pretty sure I wrote about that in Exist to Expire. That was in our book. I did that. And also, you guys be on the lookout too. I'll tell you, spoiler alert. Myself and Jeff today did Hey EW with RJ City for the first time. And like Jeff kind of, I explained to him what the bit is or whatever, but it's funny because we actually talked about that story just for a second.
See, you made a mistake there. You should not have told your brother what the bit was, because I think Jeff going into that without knowing the bit would have produced some authentically incredible Jeff Hardy content. But I'm sure he rolled with it anyway.
It provided some pretty incredible content. Rabbi got some shout outs. Our wives did. It was good. RJ City is very good at what he does.
He's the best. Speaking of Christian, by the way, Christian Cage, what's up with this whole attacking dead dads and hitting on moms and widows? What's your vibe on that?
I mean, he's a COP, you know. We could even change it to CLF, creepy little feces. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know, when he's a bad guy, he is a bad guy.
Stealing Rikishi's gimmick, he's a bad man. bad man. Let's go to Sean Bradley. Good question. Matt, in your opinion, who do you think is a bigger household name and celebrity, John Cena or Hulk Hogan? I know this is a generational question and will be different for most, but for me, it's most definitely Cena. I think he's a bigger name than Hogan was. Would love your opinion.
That is a great question. And I think just depending on your age and what generation or what period you're from would definitely alter your answer or change your answer. Hulk Hogan was a big deal. I mean, wrestling, he was the first guy that, I mean, in a lot of ways, you could say its first national boom, global boom was underneath Hulk Hogan, and people knew him. That Rocky movie was a huge deal. Rocky III, which I have seen and I did love. I enjoyed Rocky III. I watched it. He was a big deal. He was a big name. He did a lot of other stuff, but I think when it comes to John Cena, he was in the same role and position as Hulk Hogan and carried the company, and he has done several movies and stuff, but I feel like also down currently and presently, John has been a little more successful than Hogan has with the roles he's done. They've been a little bigger. They've been a little more pristine and prestigious. So I think if you compare them, especially with the way the world is now and the way information is spread, I would say John Cena is a bigger star than Hulk Hogan when it's all said and done. But someone who answers that, it's also going to depend on what period they grew up and how old they are.
If you ask Hulk Hogan these days with some of the things he's been spinning lately, he probably would tell you he was Rocky in some of those movies. So it seems to be the running bit these days. I don't disagree with your answer, man. I think you're dead on with that. You know, speaking of the golden era of wrestling, Justin Blevins asks, which tag team duo would you and Jeff love to have faced at a pay-per-view or a regular show from the golden era of wrestling? More on the WWF side rather than the WWE side.
The first answer that automatically pops in our mind, the Rockers. Matt and Jeff versus the Rockers, we'd love. We would love Matt and Jeff versus Tully and Arn, the Brainbusters. We would love Matt and Jeff versus the Hart Foundation. We would love Matt and Jeff versus Demolition because we loved all those teams. You know, those would have all been really, really cool, fun matches.
Yeah, then none of those surprised me whatsoever, and right up your alley too. Maybe even facing the Mega Powers too. Hell
yeah. I mean, the Mega Powers, I mean, that'd been the equivalent of facing like the two-man power trip. I mean, they were the same type deal at that time.
Jim, what are the differences between Tony Khan, the boss, and Tony Khan, the human being?
There's not a lot. And I know Tony really works hard to try and like not have a separation between Tony Khan, the boss, and Tony Khan, the human being, which is admirable. And I think it's cool. He wants to come off as very real and genuine and authentic as a person, you know, and as the promoter. I think if there was going to be a difference between the two, I think as a promoter, he just has to be a little less generous. And when it comes time to like put his foot down and say, no, like I'm the boss, I pay the bills, and then he does it. And I think that'll probably come in time and also just in age and experience.
Could you say that he could use a little more ruthless aggression?
Well, I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to say he needs to become Vince. He doesn't need to become Vince at all. But
no, he does not.
He's the boss and he flips the bills and he's a hell of a good guy. But like if he makes a call and someone steps out of line, he has to put them back in line. I think that'll come with time and experience.
Man, I say it on this podcast all the time. I say it on Strictly Business all the time. You can say whatever the hell you want to say about Tony Khan, but in the 5 years now that I've known Tony, because I know him back to the Jaguars days.
Yeah.
I can't think of a team owner or anyone in that type of position of power who I have found to be a more genuine person. And I mean that very, very genuinely myself. I know there's, look at that Alba, the AEW mark, but I mean it. I mean, he really...
John Alba, he does a podcast with Matt Hardy.
WWE wrong bad.
Wrong bad. Daddy Corny says wrong bad.
But I do mean that, though. I think that Tony, you can say whatever you want about ratings or viewership or attendance or whatever. I don't think there's a more genuine person in that position. So, and go ahead.
Tony is a good-hearted human being who loves pro wrestling. He's extremely passionate. He's kind. He's generous. He treats people like human beings, not like machines, not like they're a cog in the machine. And if you come out, you just put another one in. Tony Khan is a good soul. No doubts about it. He always wants to do what's right, and he wants to do what's right for everyone across the line. He's very fair. He's very forward-thinking. And I have a great appreciation for Tony Khan and his stance and his beliefs and just the way he is generally kind and very giving to everyone he meets and interacts with.
What do you think Tony Khan's reaction was to the Jacksonville Jaguars picking up a big win in week 1?
I mean, he loves to see it. I mean, anytime his team is winning, whether it's A-Dub, you know, whether it's Fulham or whether it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, he loves to see it. That man loves to win.
His post-game selfies or pictures with Doug Peterson after Jaguars win is the most consistent piece of storytelling in pro wrestling today. Let me tell you that. And I know that he's stoked, Matt Hardy, because with those Jaguars getting a big win, a lot of people out there made some good dough by downloading the DraftKings Sportsbook app and using that code Hardy. Listen, football is back in full swing with another week of epic games. And who's got you
back?
covered? Oh, it's back, baby. And who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. How about that investment, Matt?
I like it. It's a good investment.
Nobody is missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Now, Matt Hardy, you and I have been doing this King of the Mountain challenge with some of our podcast heat cohorts. I gotta be real. We gotta pick things up here. We're near the bottom of the standings, and I just can't let Jeff Jarrett beat us here.
That's why you put me in the game, John. That's why you put me in the game.
That's right. So you've got 3 bets for us this week against the spread in both college football and the NFL. What do we got?
All right, man. Let's start with the NCAA college football. I'm going to say Washington -16 over Michigan State and Kansas State -5 over Missouri.
Okay. All right.
You feel that?
I like the Big 12 representation in there as well. And then you've got one NFL bet for us.
Now let's go to the NFL. You know what I mean? Who's ready for some football? I'm ready for some football. I'm ready for some NFL. I'm saying Miami -2.5 over New England.
Okay. I like that because the Dolphins really, really looked good this past week. Tua Tagovailoa really coming into his own. I don't have a ton of faith in New England this year, honestly. I think that Mac Jones, I just don't know if he's the guy, but we're picking against the spread here. Matt's going Miami -2.5 over New England, and then the college ranks Washington -16 over Michigan State and Kansas State -5 over Missouri. I'm down with that. Here's how you can get in on the fun. Get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now. Use code Hardy to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code Hardy. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort KS, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expires 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Okay, I can breathe again. Let's keep going here with a few more questions on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. Interesting question here from Sevilla Dan. The match you regret winning or losing. So let's put on the booking hat here. Is there a match that you won that you feel maybe the other guy should have won? Or is there a match that you lost that you feel maybe you should have won?
There's absolutely a match I lost that I thought
I think I know which one that is.
And I'm sure you do. Go ahead. Spit it out.
That would be TLC 1.
TLC 1 in Raleigh, North Carolina, SummerSlam 2000. That is the match that stands out above everything else in my mind. If we could change one thing, that would be the result that should be changed. That would have been best for business at that point.
What about a match that you won that maybe you felt the other guy should have?
I'm sure I could come up with one if I do think about this for a second. What is a match? Do you have anything in mind? I don't win a lot, so I don't win a lot. It's hard to really wrap my mind around this question, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's an argument to be made that Jeff could have won at WrestleMania, but I think that even so, that's still like maybe you should have gotten that win before WrestleMania, and then he wins the big blow off match at WrestleMania rather than an I Quit match on a weird pay-per-view. Does that make any sense?
No, I don't agree with that. I think because I needed that. Jeff was popular and nothing was going to change that. And I think that win gave me a big boost at that time. So I think that was right.
I mean, I don't disagree with that. I'm just trying to come off the top of my head here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you should put Will o' the Wisp over a few extra times back.
I may have said this too. Yeah, Will o' the Wisp. I think it would have been cool if. Okay, here's what I'll say. I think when it was Edge that beat Jeff because I helped him at Royal Rumble, right? I think Jeff should have retained the title, and I think Jeff should have gone to WrestleMania as the champion because he was white hot at that time, and then we could have done the turn at WrestleMania. Okay. I think that is of the scenario you just talked about. I think that's a scenario that could have been feasible, and I think could have worked, and you would have made a new star in Jeff Hardy by him main eventing WrestleMania like that.
I like that. Bobby asks, well, hell, Bobby. He asks, what is your favorite 80s TV show?
Oh, great question. I would say probably the first show that myself and Jeff loved so much was Masters of the Universe with He-Man. We're also big fans of Voltron. We were big fans of the Transformers. And like when it came to real life TV, I would say Knight Rider.
That all tracks very much so with you. Yeah. You have a favorite 90s TV show?
I'm sure I do. If I sit back and think about it, I feel like the 90s is when I became a teenager, and it's like our mom wasn't around and we really had to pick up the role. We didn't watch TV as much as we did then. Like in the 80s. I feel like in the 80s we were kids, but like after our mom passed away, we kind of got thrust into adulthood, and like we had to pick up a little slack around.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe even like Married with Children. I remember enjoying it in the 90s. And I'm sure there's some other stuff too. It wasn't cartoons, but like we were in more of an adult role.
Sure.
I'm sure there'll be some shows after I'm not thinking about this that'll pop up that I enjoyed during that time period.
Did Matt Hardy get into the South Park craze when that dropped in the late 90s?
I didn't. I was never a big fan of South Park. I was obviously aware of it because it was huge in pop culture and everywhere. But no, I never became.
Isn't that amazing? 26 years later, it still is super relevant in pop culture.
Yeah. I mean, it's hugely impressive. Hugely impressive.
And I don't think people really remember, if you weren't alive at that point, it was everywhere. South Park. Yeah. I mean, Vince had Earthquake dress up as Golga with an Eric Cartman doll,
right,
as part of the oddities. So
yeah,
it was massive. Tracy says, hey, Matt, who is your biggest non-wrestling idol? P.S. You have a beautiful family, and tell Jeff hi.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that compliment.
And that's why you need to answer Rebecca Hardy as your non-wrestling idol, because
I would tell Jeff hello. Yeah, Rebecca Hardy might be my idol. Yeah. It's funny because this is weird. I don't really even think in that mindset a lot, as strange as that sounds. There's like, probably the person that I think would be the coolest person I can think of that I would like to know more. I got to meet him, but just Eddie Vedder. I just thought he was so cool, and he was kind of like half-assed in the gimmick, doing the deal at Pearl Jam, and I was just so inspired. That was, that's when we were at a period when I became a Pearl Jam fan. So our mother had passed, obviously, when we were younger, so everybody knows that. But our dad had a bad brain hemorrhage and aneurysm, a bad brain aneurysm that had hemorrhage, and he bled, and he was in the hospital for like a week. So there was a week when I was 15, 16 years old, and myself and Jeff, we were like kind of on our own, and I was like taking care of Jeff, and I was like, what if something does happen to our dad? What are we going to do? But it was during that time whenever I really discovered Pearl Jam, and their music was so inspirational and motivational. And I'll never forget how I was definitely old enough to drive. I was 16 at this time. I'll never forget how Jeff and we would stay up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And it's the first time ever really doing this, to hear Black whenever Black was like on rotation. And like, I remember we got the album, and just 10 was like, 10 was by far the most influential album in my life to me. And it was to Jeff at that time as well. Just all of those songs touched us. They made us feel a different way. And it was so, the whole grunge era was very emotional, and it had a lot of feeling and just a lot of like rawness to it and whatnot, because we were really at a point of being unsure about like what our life was going to become next. Like, Jeff was still 3 years younger than me, almost 3 years younger than me. And I was like, am I going to be the one taking care of him now? Like, what are we going to do? Like, as far as money goes, and as far as living. And it was a very uncertain period. But like that week we were separated, and like I was driving, we would obviously go see our dad every single week, and he ended up being okay when it was all said and done. But that was a very influential week. And I say, just because of that period of time and that uncertainty, like Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam, they like calmed us both down, and they made us have optimism and belief that things were going to be okay in the future. And that was one of the reasons I was really inspired to meet him so much.
That's the beauty of live music and music in general, right there. That's it. That's the essence of it. That's when you find something you connect with.
Yeah.
Nothing tops it. Nothing. Mm-hmm. That's why I've gone to 75 concerts this year. I got a festival this coming weekend, and I'm just gonna live, Matt Hardy.
You have to live, man. One of my favorite expressions or advice I would tell people is like, live life. Oh, life is not long. Life is fleeting, and just live life, and do things that make you feel alive. Never forget to do that, man.
Are you a Foo Fighters guy?
I do enjoy Foo Fighters. Yes, they don't come to the forefront as much as they probably should, but I am a big Foo Fighters fan.
I think you'd really be into Foos if you did a deep dive. That's who I'm seeing on Sunday, and I've seen them 5-6 times. They're Dave Grohl's the man, big time Dave Grohl guy. So
Everlong is one of my favorite songs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's get a few more in, and then we will wrap things up here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. I like this question, Mitchell. Worst wardrobe malfunction you've had in a match?
That's amazing, because I have a good one actually. It was on a live event with WWE. Whenever Jeff and I first started, and we went and bought the kickwear pants, right? And it's so funny because like people associate them with Hot Topic first and foremost, but we got them initially at Gadzooks. Have you ever been at Gadzooks, John?
That's a very late 90s, early 2000s store.
Very, very much so. So we got it at Gadzooks, but after we started wearing them, so they reached out to us and they sent us like tons of pairs of these kickwear pants, right? A bunch of different stuff. We're just actually redoing my closet right now, and I just saw some of the old stuff and original stuff, and we packed a lot of stuff up to put in the storage out in the dome of deletion. But like these pants we were wearing were great, and like obviously we were like on the road nonstop working all the time. There was a time when I was involved in a match, and my total inseam split out of the pants. And I remember like looking down, like Jeff looked over and like pointed and was kind of like snickering and laughing. And you could see like my boxer shorts underneath my junk was like kind of sticking out a little bit of just the both things. So they were still covered. We didn't have any kind of I didn't become the X-rated superstar or anything, but just it was very funny. These pants had split, and then my undies was sticking out. Like obviously my junk was protruding a little bit. And that was a live event, and that was actually towards the end of the match. But it was a pretty big funny laugh looking back at it.
Got to give the people what they want, as the best friends would say. That's the most important thing, you know.
I just got to give Rebecca Hardy what she wants.
And I don't think you're failing at that, pal, considering you've got a gaggle of children. Okay, I'm going to take this question a step further, just because this is something that happens in wrestling. John Cena has spoken about it. CM Punk has spoken about it. Many wrestlers have spoken about it. Have you ever either shit or pissed yourself in the ring? Has that ever happened?
I have not.
Okay.
But there was one time where I was sick and wrestling Shannon Moore, and I felt like I was going to. I let out one of the most terrible gases. I omitted. He jumped off the top and like hit me with some corkscrew. It's like when he was my MFer, and we had sometimes where I'd beat him up, and we worked on live events a couple times. And I jumped off, and we did a thing where I'd reverse and roll through, and he ended up right in my crotch. He's like, "Oh my God, did you shit yourself?" I was like, "No, I didn't." But it was like terrible gas because I was extremely sick that day anyway. And he said, "I swear you got to show me." And I had like, when we got back and showered, I showed him my underwear and everything. So look, I didn't. It was just, sorry. I'm very rank right now. I don't smell good. Sorry.
It's people don't realize that like if you take a bump improperly, anything can go wrong. You just lose control there, and
especially if you're sick.
right. And like you said, your boy Rikishi, he said this on like episode 2 or 3. He took care of the people that he wanted to, but I'm sure Rikishi. I'm sure if someone had a receipt coming, Rikishi's probably not the one you want that from.
No, I would suggest no. He's very old school too, very old school in his mentality. Like if when it comes to Rikishi, if you're facing him, you're probably going to get the stink face you deserve when it's all said and done.
Oh, I like that. That's a very eloquent way.
Yeah. I just thought that on the fly. Yeah, you're probably going to get the stink face you deserve.
Put it on his epitaph. We got Cameron. Great question here. If you could reestablish one cardinal rule of wrestling, backstage or not, what would it be?
I mean, I feel like now that most of that stuff, like obviously it was over the top. When you would come in, there would be hazing. Yeah. Myself and Jeff got hazed. Christian, Edge got hazed. All the guys got hazed when they were coming in. And like we're past that period. Society has moved past that, fortunately, thankfully. But like it's different now. But I still think there are younger guys, and there are a lot of guys that really do. There are some younger guys that almost feel a little entitled and don't show quite as much respect as they could for the people who paved the path for them, because that was such a huge deal when we first started. Like, respect the people who paved the road for you to get here, who did things that allowed you to get an opportunity to do this. And I feel like that isn't honored as much today as it should be.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I think that translates to pretty much any business or whatever you do, right? I mean, especially if the person has not disrespected you in any way, there's no reason to be disrespectful to them, you know? That's just the way that I kind of approach that. I'll tell you, I think
also too, if you're someone that's been around, like, you know, if a young guy comes up and says, "Oh, I want to do this, and this to you," as opposed to like saying, "Well, like, what would you like me to do?" Or, you know, what would be cool with you? I think the way you approach a scenario is very important as well, especially if you're talking to someone who is a veteran and who has sacrificed his body for 3 decades. It's very important to like be very respectful in your conversation with them and realize like they've put a lot of mileage on their body and they've destroyed their body to make sure you could get here and do this one day down.
I know Wrestler's Court is something we've talked about a few times on this podcast. And I think back in the day, it was probably pretty mean-spirited at times, even though it was done ideally to, you know, make things right. I think it probably got a little mean-spirited sometimes, but I think the concept could be a very fun concept for some levity in a locker room if you did it respectfully and not in a way that called people out or endangered them or anything like that. Like if you did it from a very self-aware and fun manner, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. If it was done where it wasn't mean-spirited and it was done just like as a
bonding experience,
a morale boosting bonding.
Yeah, a little self-aware fun's never bad, but I think it just crossed the line too much, and that was probably the emphasis there. Matthew Cooper, were you on the plane ride from hell in May 2002? If so, do you have any memories from it?
Of course I was on it, and I have a ton of memories. You know, I'll never forget. They really worked hard to get me on that dark side of the ring, plane ride from hell, and I very politely declined because
Some
I knew
stories are best saved for the vault.
no good was good. Well, but two, like either A, if you speak like the facts and how things really went down in society, and you're like showing you're like a good natured person, and you have to say these terrible things about people you may genuinely like, or maybe people who've done good things to you. It's like a lose-lose situation in many ways. And I think we saw examples of that, like with Tommy Dreamer, for instance, who is one of the sweetest guys in the world and really wants what's best for everyone. But he was just kind of put in an impossible situation. When it comes to the plane ride from hell, my most fond memory that that I can say, which won't get me in trouble one way or the other, is that I remember sitting talking with Taker, being right by that emergency exit, and Kurt Hennig was being hilarious. He was just kept with Brock. He would say, "Look, I'm so sorry I did this. I'm so sorry I've been ribbing you. I'm so sorry I'm messing with you." He said, "Hey, can we make it okay?" And like he said, "Here, shake my hand, Brock. Let's shake hands like men." And then I remember Kurt Hennig stomped on his toes, and he had on shoes, and Brock didn't. He was barefoot or in his socks, and he went running down the aisle. And then eventually, when he called up to him and came back, he picked him up like he was driving him into the turnbuckle, and drove them into the emergency door there, and we're at the highest elevation flying over the Atlantic Ocean, and like, holy shit. And it was terrifying. And I just remember like them hitting and like me making eye contact with Taker, like, what the fuck? And it's just like, what if this would have opened? We would have all died, and it pretty much impossible to open that thing at that height and whatnot, at that altitude. But just, it was so crazy. Just like you would never, ever see that on a plane in this day and age.
Did you recognize in real time that flight was different than other flights?
Oh yeah. Out of control. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. It made me appreciate the fact that I was still a good kid at that time. Before the wrestling business ate me up and chewed me up and spit me out.
Yeah. Were you there when Kurt and Vince McMahon got into a grappling brawl on the flight?
Yeah, that was a different flight, but I was there as well.
Yeah, I know it was a different flight, but
yep.
Can you share anything about that? Because there are some disputed records of that.
Disputed as in
people have tried to discredit each other's perception of what actually happened there. What's your recollection of that?
I mean, every time Vince kept trying to take him down, there was one point where he grabbed me and said, "Hardy, distract this son of a bitch. Tell him to come to you," and he was going to jump out from behind, like where the stewardess stand.
He tried to pawn you off.
Oh, he did. And I said, "What am I going to get out of it?" He said, I'll take good care of you." And then I went and I was walking through, and as I was doing this, "Hey, Kurt, come down here." I said, "By the way, watch out. Vince is going to jump you." And like Vince grabbed him, and like he immediately turned him around. Like every single time Vince tried to grab Kurt, like Kurt took him down instantly. And that's every time I saw it, and I saw it happen multiple times throughout the night. Kurt would grab Vince, and he would take him down and like pin his ass on the floor, get the amateur pin on him.
I love that you gave Kurt the Iggy.
Oh yeah,
that's amazing. Why did Vince want to take him down so bad?
Why does Vince want to do a lot of things that he does? I mean, it's just Vince. Vince, back in the day, was one of the boys. Would go out with the wrestlers and stuff, and there's still a big part of him that liked enjoying doing things with the boys. And if he would get some red wine in him or drink a little bit, whatever, and we're on a flight, it's a charter flight, he's paid for it. Like he just still wants to show that he's the man, he's the guy. And he genuinely really liked Kurt a lot too. They get along great, so it was a fun time for him. Which
so Kurt didn't get bent out of shape about that.
No.
Okay. That's great. Those are the stories that make podcasts like this great. That's what I love to hear. I had no idea that you were part of that Vince tried to stooge you off on Kurt.
There's a cartoon that we did somewhere for a WWE thing where they had me tell the story.
Oh, you were part of the story time?
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I remember it. I remember the story time. I don't remember you even being part of that though. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I want to feel like we even up. I was like, okay, sure, I'll do it. But what am I going to get? He said, maybe you'll make more money with me or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, great. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I said, okay, I got you. And I went down and said, Kurt, by the way, Vince is going to attack you on the way down here. So I was playing both sides, brother. I was going to play it safe.
That's a big money Matt move if I've ever heard one.
Big money Matt shining through. That was Big Money Matt's official debut and cameo.
Oh, this is great stuff, Matt Hardy. We got so many great questions, so many that we didn't even get to. But I promise you guys, again, we do these Ask Matts pretty often. I love doing them. So make sure you get those questions in. If we didn't get to your question this time, I promise you in the future, resend another question. We'll get to it. And if you want to drop me a DM and say, hey, you didn't answer my question, I'll try to make sure that we include it on the next one. So that way everyone is represented here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. And sometimes every month we do Ask Matts that are ad-free shows exclusive too. So if you become an ad-free shows member, you'll be able to become part of that as well. I know it's been late, Matt, but this has been a very fun episode. I've used this word like five times this episode, but some much needed levity.
And this really was, John. This was great fun. So I'd really enjoy it.
Anything on your mind right now that you want to get out there before we sign off here?
Make sure to tune in to Rampage tonight. You know, it's time for the Hardy Boys to get back on the path to those AEW World Tag Team titles, and it starts tonight.
Yeah, let's win some matches, those Hardy Boys. It's about time to see some W's for Matt and Jeff. We want to see you score a W by teaming up with us here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. AdvertiseWithHardy.com. Promote your business to the extreme by getting it in front of thousands of listeners every single week via YouTube, via Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, we will get your product out there. Next week, we're going to have a new sponsor on board because they heard that Advertise with Hardy was the place to be. AdvertiseWithHardy.com. We will endorse you and are not afraid to whore ourselves out here on the Extreme Life. Let me tell you that, my friends. Even with our one cardinal rule, which is NWA, as you are firmly aware. Good episode, Matt. The words have most certainly been spoken. On the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, we'll see you next time.
Delete!